The Todd Shapiro Show. Canada Laughs. SiriusXM 168.
Hey, dude. JP.
Hey.
Hey, man. Thanks for calling.
No, my bad, man. I literally was taking my wife out because somebody was picking her up, and then I just came back and saw the phone. So,
any opportunity you have to mention your hot wife, you do, don't you?
No, I just literally was taking her out. I had to take her outside, and so.
Hey, man, I I've known JP for a long time, and last I saw him was in LA, and we've been good friends and buddies, and I would just be honest, we were just talking about Roy, and I don't know, there's now this TMZ stuff that's showing some videos, JP, so I just let you know about that, because I know you're doing a ton of media around this and everything. But you were close with Roy Halladay, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I was close enough in the sense of where he was almost a fictional character, just because when I signed, you get drafted by the Blue Jays and you watch Roy Halladay, and all of a sudden you're in your first spring training and you're watching Roy Halladay, and so you're almost, these are guys that you've grown up watching on TV for a long time. And all of a sudden now you're in the same clubhouse as him, and this guy is the head honcho of the team. And so, as a person that wants to play in the big leagues, you're looking at these guys going, holy smokes, this is like, he's actually human. Like, he's there, he talks, like he's a normal human being. And that was, one of the things at the beginning was like that. And then as you see him, the way no one outworked this guy. No one was there earlier than he was. I mean, like, where usually people work out and take rest in between sets, this guy was like working out, doing something else. As his rest, he was like running. And it was like, man, this guy is insane, but you always kind of understood why he was so special because of how he went about his business. And I saw the stuff with the TMZ, and I saw him flying. Well, to me, that's obviously this guy. Well, it was fun to watch him be a civilian, because I remember how he was as a player, and he was so focused and he was so locked in. And people forget, that what we do for a living, it's ingrained in you since you're a little kid, and so that's all you really know. And then all of a sudden you get out into the real life and you're like, holy smokes, I've missed a lot of life, and I get to enjoy my first summer, and I get to see, the leaves change colors, and there's certain, there's like the little things that you don't even realize that are huge. And that's, for me, following on social media, the coolest thing was seeing Roy Halladay, who was allowed to be the civilian Roy Halladay, and not the guy who was always locked in and was like just always working and just, that's the one thing that I enjoyed, is watching him and seeing him just enjoy his regular life. Because as a player, I mean, media will tell you this guy was as locked in. He was almost intimidating to talk to because of how serious he took his job.
That's so well said, and something that I think a lot of people can't ever relate to, because listen, we're not pro athletes. We don't ever sort of get that non-stop competition aspect, that what have you done for me lately, every moment, and to be at the top of your game, you got to be locked in and focused and non-stop focused. And the one thing I always heard about Roy, JP, and so and just to clarify, just to make sure, you came up to the Jays in 10 and that was the year he got traded to the Phillies, is that right?
Yeah, so he got traded away. So when I played with him in spring training and all that stuff, but never got to play with him in the actual Toronto Blue Jays. And then when he first made his return to Toronto, I was already in the big league, so that's when I got to face him in Toronto.
Wow. And back to that focus and sort of the pro athlete life. And because I don't want to use Roy as the example, but I read a bit of Steve Avery's book recently and heard Steve Avery talk, NHLer, and Avery talked about retiring from the NHL and missing out on that adrenaline, and that, one thing that people don't really ever want to talk about is how players can go through depression and look to find that thrill seeking somewhere else, because you get it on a nightly basis, or if you're a pitcher once every 5 nights, and that's something that most people can't ever feel. And then how do you find that high again? And maybe flying, and I mean, I know he was always an avid flyer and his dad was a pilot and everything, but maybe flying, sort of having fun flying was do you think that could have been some of that seeking of that adrenaline? Is that, and do you go through some of that, JP?
Well, I mean, listen, as much as it is even normal life, when you stop playing, you there's things that you don't realize that go on, like, having to be a responsible husband in the sense of catering to your family and doing things, because our whole lives, all we've ever done is gone to the field, and we don't have to, answer to certain things because, hey, we got to go to the yard to go to work. And so, that's the tough part about it. But again, for me, watching the TMZ stuff, and I know that people may say, like, oh, it was irresponsible or whatever, and he was doing things that he probably shouldn't have done. For me, I look at it as knowing Roy, the competitor, and knowing Roy, the person that I got to look up to and see go to work every day. This dude seemed so happy when he was in that plane. And so I imagine, this guy, Roy was having the time of his life and ultimately ended up taking his life. But when you think about ways to go out, I mean, obviously you don't ever want him to go out, and you feel for his family and his wife and kids. But if you think about ways to go out, I imagine this guy was on the high of just normal life, because he talked about it when he said like, oh, I couldn't fly as a player. There was a lot of things that we couldn't do as players that, we wanted to do, whether it be skiing or water sports or whatever. And this is something that was obviously in his heart. And so what was cool is just thinking, and now that I'm away from it, is going, now it's not the high of the game, it's the high of the things that you weren't able to do in civilian life. And obviously that was fly a plane. So, he's out there and he's doing all the things that he probably thought that he was on top of the world, being able to do that, and all of a sudden, it all comes crashing down. And again, it's surreal, because I think he was such a fictional character in the sense of how great in greatness, how big he was, that you just think like guys like that are invincible, when you realize that really there's a couple of things in life that are guaranteed. And, obviously death is one of them.
One of the things that people forget when you say the word professional is what it takes to be a professional. And for most sports, I'm not a big sports guy, but I do know that most people that are professional sports players started as children wanting to do it and gave up a lot of their childhood to do that, to be that good, to get that good. And then to have the fame attached to it, it just all kind of seems like a freight train going in one direction. And then when it stops, as Todd was saying, it is something hard to kind of grab a hold of and have a normal life with a wife and kids and find highs and lows in that atmosphere. And the one thing I do want to say also is that one of the great things about social media, sure, there's the bad part, but one of the great things is that all of this is being talked about. All of this is being thrown out into the world. Like, I knew a little bit about his past, but once he passed away, I went and looked up a lot of the things that he's done and realized how great he was. So I think that's something else that has to be said about the powers of social media, where you don't have to just rely on one source. It's all out there for people to go and find out how great he is.
Well, yeah, and again, the thing that stood out to me was, I followed him on Twitter, and I got to see that Roy Halladay enjoying Roy Halladay's life. And obviously, not that he didn't enjoy it as a pitcher or whatever, but again, you almost like you go back to the ESPN commercial or whatever with Albert Pujols, the machine, and you almost, it's a joking spot, but it really is what you become. It's because you're ingrained to a routine. Wake up, eat. Go to the field, work out. Meetings, bullpen, pitch, work out, ice, all these different things. And so when you get into that, it's just what you do. You don't really realize it, and then looking at his social media, it was like, dang, he's enjoying going fishing. He's enjoying his kid's life. He's enjoying, and it was cool to see, almost in the sense of Doc get to let his hair down and just be the person that he can enjoy and be able to turn it off. Because I think that's the biggest thing too is you get locked in, and I think entertainers deal with this and all that. You're locked in so much that you almost forget, like, dang, I can let my hair down and just be, Joe Schmo, and I think that's what he was doing really, really well, was just not being Roy Halladay the pitcher. He was being Roy Halladay, the father, the husband, and everything else, and he was just living and enjoying it at a high capacity. And so that's why, I really, really enjoyed following him on social media, was because of that.
On the phone with JP Arencibia, a longtime buddy of mine, and Darren Frost is co-hosting today. And, there is something to be said, JP, and I these conversations are so important, and it's tough to have them because we're talking about someone who's now, deceased and is such a tragic incident, is that it reminds everyone, and this is to take any positive away such a tragedy, it reminds people to try and find a way to live your life in a genuine, authentic nature. And that's the balance we try and, because how do you do that when you're trying to earn money and provide for a family? Or how do you do that if you're super rich, like, a Major League Baseball player, but still, without that focus, you won't be super rich. And then, what's next? And sure, you can afford an airplane, but can you live a genuine, authentic lifestyle? And that's the one thing that keeps all of us together, is how do we be true to ourselves, and how do we have fun? And you said it as an entertainer, like, every day I got to be here at 4:00 and do a show, and trust me, if this mic sock's not in front of me at SiriusXM, like, I'm a little nervous. How would I get my next rush? And it's definitely not a podcast because it's not live on the radio. No, but so it's always about just remembering those moments, whether during or after, to just try to be true to you, have fun, let your hair down, like you're saying, and make the most of it. And again, not to be too cliche here, but you never know when it's over. So just at least make the most of it when you have it. And man, I really appreciate you like talking to us just so openly about this. It's got to be your fraternity of the baseball world right now. Like what? And I'm sure you've spoken to some guys and things. Like how's everyone holding up?
I mean, obviously, I think what's crazy is, more than anything, is the hits that baseball has taken here in the recent years. You go, Yordani Ventura, dies in a car accident. Jose Fernandez dies in a boating accident. Roy Halladay dies in a plane accident. And it's like, and like you said, it's one of those things where life is precious, man. And life is tough, and there's a lot of situations that are not easy. But like you said, I think it's, at the end of the day, when you put your head on the pillow, can you say, I did the things the way that I felt they were supposed to be done today? And again, that's why you even look at like kids, and that was when I went through my struggles with the anxieties and all these things. Is one of the things that we used to talk about was look at kids and then look at their faces and how they're enjoying it. Like, sometimes you have your son, and I get to watch the videos that you put on Instagram, and you just, how much fun does he have when he's going to the playground? How much fun does he have? And sometimes you get a toy that's a huge toy, and the box is the bigger thing that they get to have fun with. And it's like, that's what that's true enjoyment, and that's really what you try to get in life, is how can we really make the most of it? And listen, yeah, there's tough times, and yeah, there's things that suck, and bad stuff is going to happen, but it's, how come we can walk into McDonald's sometimes, or to some of these places where, you'd be like, I don't want to work there, and you walk in and the dude is the happiest guy on the planet, and he's fired up to do his job. Like, I think that's contentment, and that's when you're content, you can kind of enjoy life, as opposed to, there's been a lot, I'm sure you're around it too, and I've been around a lot of people who've made a lot of money in their life that are miserable. And so at the end of the day, like, it comes down to, being your true self and having that contentment with, what's going on around in your life, which I do think, I believe wholeheartedly that at that moment that Roy was flying that plane, you know that he was, having the time of his life. And, that's something obviously you don't want to celebrate. It's tough to celebrate anything, but if you can take a positive out of it, is, he was having that kid-like, moment where he was just going out there and just doing things that made him happy, and that was it.
It's chilling, man. To think about, to get your perspective, it's chilling. It's beautiful because you're right. After it's through you trying to understand some of his pressures, which we might not have understood, and obviously I'm sure his family made him extraordinarily happy. But to get out and to be free, and then to do his things, and just to let his complete guard down, and kind of to go that way. I mean, far too young, but I agree with you. If there's a way to go, like at least be at your sort of least guarded, like your freest moment. And it's actually very emotional. It's interesting. It's a neat way to look at it. And I don't know. I love you, brother. I love catching up with you. Let's try and do this on better times. Well, and we've had some fun before. And by the way, thanks for the shout out about the dad and stuff on Instagram, because my wife sometimes listens, so she'll think I'm a good dad.
You can tell your boys. It's Sawyer, right?
Yeah, little Sawyer.
Yeah, he's fired up, man. And it just times like this. Unfortunately, I feel like in general, tragedy tends to bring people to a more centered place, which obviously you try to avoid it, but that's when it kind of puts it in perspective. How important really it is, because again, you could be going and getting in a car on the way home, and all of a sudden that was your last, car ride. And so you just want to make sure that you kind of cross the T's and dot the I's along every single day, so that you don't have any things to look back to.
Last question, just about his actual pure pitching ability, Royce. What makes a pitcher so much better than other pitchers? Like, he was a pitcher who could get perfect games, a pitcher who can win Cy Young. Like, as a catcher, you would understand this. Like, what is that difference?
Well, one, obviously, the God-given ability. This guy was unbelievably talented, but what takes talent over the top is preparation, and there's no one that prepared better than him. I mean, listen, I could sit here and say he had an unbelievable cutter, an unbelievable sinker, curveball, changeup. There's a lot of guys in baseball that we've probably never heard of that have had amazing stuff. They just didn't have the strength and ability in between their ears to get to the opportunity and get to the place that Roy Halladay was, or the dedication. But again, when you talk about a guy who was the first one in the field every day, when you talk about a person who, it almost was like, dude, why are you beating yourself up so much in the weight room? But he just worked. He wanted to make sure that there wasn't an ounce left. And when I told this story yesterday, was when he got over the National League, we used to get scouting reports when we would play in the interleague play with the Blue Jays. He would send us his scouting reports, and his scouting reports were so in depth. It was like, no wonder why this guy's so special. Because literally, I made this reference yesterday too. Was like, if your belt was just one loop away, if you had tied it a little tighter that day, it was like, oh, he's looking for this pitch. Like, things, and obviously that's exaggerated, but things to that extent was how in-depth his scouting reports are. And it was like, dang, this guy is so in control when he's on the mound that he knows if this guy's foot is pointed, a couple inches to the right, and watch if his elbow is like in a certain position, this is how you have to attack him. And I had never seen a scouting report or anything that in depth. And so when you talk about special players, well, this dude was that special. A person who gets paid for a living as a scout didn't even come close to the scouting report that Roy Halladay put together, before he pitched.
It's thanks for all this, the personal anecdotes, and Listen, we broadcast out of Toronto for people listening everywhere. We just had a call from Michigan and stuff. So, as a fan and as a fan of the Jays, a diehard fan my entire life, I'll never forget my father calling me 92 to come home from I was going to Carleton, and rushed home. He had a ticket for me for the first ever World Series game in Canada, and just following that. Roy was top 3, 4 most liked Jays ever. Maybe number 1 in many people's minds, and very sad day, not just for Toronto, obviously, not just for Canada, not just for all the baseball world, but really, and let's be honest, especially his wife and his children and his close friends. JP, thanks for your time, my man.
You got it, Todd.
We'll talk soon on better times, my man, and a big cheers to you.
You got it. You too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
The Todd Shapiro Show. Canada Laughs. SiriusXM 168.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. You can subscribe over there, or you can watch another video over here. And I think this is the Daniel Bryan yes chant. So what the hell? Yes, Todd Shapiro Show. Daniel Bryan can't wrestle anymore. It's a very sad story.